Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up.
I love my TBS Source 1 V4 quad so much. If only there was some way I could improve it. Let's get digital! Today we are going to take this awesome TBS Source 1 V4 5-inch Freestyle analog drone and make it an even better TBS Source 1 V4 5-inch Freestyle digital drone with the help of a Caddx Vista Polar. We're going to go through installation of the Vista, the wiring, the activation, the binding, and finally the Betaflight setup, start to finish. Strap in, let's crack on. First things first, we're going to have to remove the props because you're going to end up doing it sooner or later, so you might as well just get them off now. Also, before we go any further, I'm going to be modifying the frame slightly, not the frame. I'm going to be lowering the standoffs. Where we got these here. You can see there's a lot of space. We don't need. I want to lower the center of gravity a bit. We're going to put in some smaller standoffs. Why not while we're here? Okay, let's get rid of those. Next, it's going to be the top plate. So next I'm going to go ahead and start removing the old VTX, starting with the antenna. Go ahead and unplug the camera for now. There. We're about ready to remove the VTX and the camera power. Get those desoldered in a second. But we're going to have a look at the pinout on the Xylo Stax flight controller and the Caddx Vista. We're going to want the filtered VBAT for the VTX and the ground up there, and we're going to want the UARTs 4, TX and RX 4 we're going to use as well for that. And on the Vista, we're not going to be using the ground and the S-bus, we're using Crossfire, so we don't need those two. We're going to be connecting to the first 4, BAT, ground, RX and TX. Remembering that RX on the Vista will go to TX on the flight controller, and TX on the Vista will go to RX on the flight controller. And it should look a little something like this. I like to work at a decent temperature on this, about 350 usually, I think. Right, okay. Start with the easier one. There's one. They're out of the way. That becomes the negative. Or wasn't I using these? There we go. Okay, this should just whip that out. Save that. For sure we're going to save that. Okay, the VTX, let's get that off. You don't want to be touching any other components. And I do recommend you do a continuity test. If you've got some multimeters and as our VTX is off. Let's clean up some of these pads while we can. And just hit them with an iron. You just clean them up a little bit. Okay, there we are. Looking all nice and clean. Okay, now we've got the camera power and the VTX desoldered. I'm going to go ahead and remove the camera. That's that off anyway. Excellent. I think it's about time to clean up this board and unpack the Caddx Vista over here, and we'll be back shortly. Beautiful little VTX and camera. The Vista unit, I know the Air unit has its benefits, but for Freestyle, something this small and lightweight is so easy to mount. I mean, the best VTX in the world ever, dare I say that. But anyway, what we want first is this little bunch of cables, this little connector kit. That's what we want first. So in this little bag that Caddx provides you, you're going to find this, which is going to be the main cable, and this is capable of power and your ground, obviously, your TX, your RX, and if you're going to run a DJI controller, this also takes the additional ground and the S bus. We're going to get rid of those two in a moment because we run Crossfire, so we don't have to worry about those two. We are going to solder up the cables to the Vista first. With an air unit, you get to use the plug. Vistas you don't. It's the only downside to the Vista, but it's not much of a downside. Once you've soldered one or two, they're not that bad. I'll put up on screen the pin out, and we'll read it from right to left here. It's upside down. The antenna is on the bottom now. So we've got this one here, very far side here. Right hand side is battery. Then we have ground. Then we have RX and TX. These last two are ground and S bus. We don't need those. We're going to remove those from this. We just want the first four. We're going to start by adding the tiniest bits of flux. I like to use a cocktail stick, so it's toothpick. Yeah, even that's too much. You want the tiniest of bits on these pads, and it just helps the solder, not solder, I'm afraid. The solder just flow. It goes quicker. It makes your life easier. Use flux. Coming in from here, there's a bit on there already, always is. That's lovely. There's the positive, ground, pulled up. And RX and TX. Vista tinned. A bit of blue tack on the bottom. It just helps. Stops it sliding around. There we go. Just in first four pads. In there. Next, we're gonna make sure the cable's nicely tinned. Okay. Steady hand time. Starting with the battery. Power, the positive. Go. Now we want it right there. Clean this up. A little bit of tin on the end. With your soldering iron. We just want to tap this on. Be as nice and quick as possible. Come in. Two become one. Lift off with the iron. Let it cool for a second. Beautiful. Next is the ground. You don't want to be holding the iron there messing around, so just get it all nice and how you want it. You know where you're going to come in. Get a bit of tin on the tip. Just tap it down. On and off. On and off. Tap it down. Yellow for the RX we're going to use. Make sure you use the right yellow. Get the cable in place where we want it first. So when we're ready, we just go in and we just tap it. And like that, and we come off. One more on here. And the Vista is soldered. Tip is tinned, cleaned. Cable is in position. Just tap the two together. Let it cool for a second. And there we go. That's those four. They all look lovely, so they all look good. Beautiful stuff. Before we go any further, now's a good time to check continuity. And I highly recommend, if you're going to do any of this, get yourself a multimeter. It doesn't have to be expensive, it can be cheap. They're great for voltage, but better for us for checking continuity. And we're going to do that before we go any further. Check it on the Vista and check it on the flight controller, so we know we're clear before we solder any of the two bits together. Right, so we get our multimeter, we stick it round to the ohms sign there. generally what it is on the multimeters. And we get that beeping. That means we have continuity. So continuity is a bad thing for us building, especially between positive and negative. We don't want continuity between positive and negative. So I'm going to check between those two first. They're clear. The next two along, and the next two along. And we don't have continuity between any of those pins. Yep, just me checking. Nope, they're all clear. Fantastic. Let's go to the XD60 first. That's clear. The pins over here that we desoldered, let's check those. Oh, they're all good, they're all clear. Excellent. I did say about depinning this, but there's really no need because we don't have a compatible header on the flight controller. We're just going to go ahead and cut this off as close as we can. I think we need as much cable as possible on this coming from this side. We'll just and there we go. All ready. Solder up to this. Okay, so let's get to mounting this Vista before we finish up for today, maybe. Right, I like to use, if you can find them, these are just some long, I guess they're M2s, it might be M2.5, I'm not sure. But I had them lying around and they're long enough to go through the frame and all the way through the Vista. I'm going to use just a plastic nut. These are M3, I think, plastic nut, to space it off the deck because I don't like it touching the carbon, just for airflow really and for cooling. So we'll put one of those in there, plastic nut on. It does get a bit fiddly. We go in this way, and on it goes. Perfect. Get this nut on very loose. Oh, no one in the world has hands small enough for these nuts. That's what she said. Oh baby, oh, you stop doing that. That's me. We're there. What even are these? I have no idea what these are. Okay, there's one in. I think we're about where we want to be. I can see us removing the flight controller and putting this cable underneath because that's not acceptable. Look at that. You could always unplug it, but it's easier to remove the flight controller. Excellent. So let's get these pads tinned on the flight controller that we need, and we want where are we? We want RX4 and then TX4. So it's these two here. So we've got a bit of flux on there already. Just gonna feed in some solder. Lovely. It's lovely. The other two pads we need are these two. So we're going to need that one there and that one there. See those. And that's our power and ground. So white TX is how we did the Vista. Means white wants to go to RX on the flight controller. So we're going to come in at a bit of an angle there. Bit like that, I think. Bit like that. Get our tip ready. Come in nice and quick at an angle like that. And press it on, tab it on, hold it there, take it off. Oh, looks like it grew there. Tap that on. Bit more solder. Alright, get the tip ready again and tap it on. There we go. Oh, she took to it that time, like a duck to water. TX and RX, all soldered up lovely there. That's very nice and neat. Okay, so let's just get to our power. That one there. In our tip. In place. Careful not to touch anything else. Okay. There we go. Okay, right, let's move some of this away. And the last thing we're going to do right now is check our continuity again. We knew we were clear before we done any soldering. Let's check it again now. Let's check between these two. No problems. Let's check between the power and the negative, the most important two, and they're clear. That's excellent. We can check on the XD60. It's lovely and clear. Look at that. Next thing we've got to do is plug it in and power it up, I guess. So next we are ready to bind to the goggles. We're going to need the goggles, power for the goggles, a lipo, and obviously make sure you've got your antennas on everything by this point. Don't power up anything without antennas. Even if it says it's okay, have them on. Be in the habit of just putting them on. First things first, we need to power up the goggles. And the on the goggles, just below where you put the power cord in, there's your binding button right there. So you're going to need something small as well, like this. But if you are going to use something small like that, be careful, don't jab it in hard. That's what she said. Next, we want to put the goggles, when they're up and running, put these into binding mode. Put these into binding mode. Is there. You should just press that and we get the beeping. Now we want to plug the Vista unit in. Take our LiPo, plug it in. No smoke. Then we want to, on the Vista, it's just down here, there's a little button by the USB-C, it's just there. You want to press that. It goes red and it's flash green. Goggles will stop beeping. That should mean we are bound, and I need to take these off. It says above device is not activated to DJI Assistant 2 to activate and receive a complete product user experience. Any button to exit. So yeah, we've got to activate these yet, but we have an image. Brilliant stuff. Okay. Well, that was binding. So now that we've gone bound, it's time to activate the Vista unit. So I'm using DJI Assistant 2, DJI FPV series, and as soon as you open it, it asks you to plug in a USB. So let's do that. Power. Powered up. She's powered up. Vista unit's powered up. Lovely. Plug in the USB. There we go. The Assistant's doing its thing. Air unit light. That's the device. Activate your device when you first connect it to the app. So we're going to start activation there. Accounts. Okay, I've read, so it's going to want my account details, a verification code. Confirm my account. I have read and confirm. Activating. Activation success. DJI FPV goggles and air need to be activated separately. There, the rest of my stuff is activated. User survey. Not right now, thank you. Version 0.606, which I believe I run on all of my stuff, and that is the way it's going to stay. as of July 21, I think that was. So yeah, good stuff. Right, okay, we're done in there. So now we should find, when we grab the goggles, power them back on again, take my glasses off because I only need them to see 2 feet in front of me. Now all antennas are on, all good. When we power up this, we should be bound and activated in the goggles. So fingers crossed, here we go. Okay, let's have a look in here. Goggles are still turning on. Okay, all looks good. There we go. We're able to change channel. We are bound and we are activated. So now that we're all bound up and activated, I want to cover the problem of the camera not quite reaching my mounts. You could get a longer cable, but if we mounted it in these holes, the lens is probably going to stick out too far anyway. So, and that's just too tight. I don't want it. I don't like it that tight. So, and with the lower standoffs, these would have to be cut down. So we've just jumped on the printer, jumped on the Fusion 360 first, then on the Ender 3, and came up with this. So it should just move the standoff, it should move the mounting point back a little bit and give us enough camera protection, still be able to mount it. We shouldn't get too much in the view. So we're obviously a little bit shorter for the new standoff height, but other than that, it's pretty similar, a little bit thicker maybe, and a prettier colour. So let's see, this is going to work. Really tight, first time going on. If it goes on, I'll be happy. Right, I'll get the right way up. Yep, squeeze her down. Oh, okay. I did make it slightly shorter than the standoffs, just by like 1/2 mil. It's you don't want to be 1/2 mil over. Okay, yeah, that's not looking too bad. I think we're good. I think we're good. I didn't record the part of putting the antenna into the Vista here. What you need to do is have a look. So this side here does unclip and come out and swing out on this bolt here. You put the antenna in, you push it down on a little UFL, and then you tuck it back in, but you can never tuck this back in. So you nearly always end up removing this bolt. Be careful, just take it out, you're going to need it. Take this whole bracket out, put your UFL on, put this side on first, then swing it round, slide it back in and put the bolt back in, and that's how I do it. But I hate it, it's horrible, it's a struggle, and every man has his struggle. You don't need to watch me do that. Anyway, back on with the camera. And you don't ever want your camera bolts to ground out, really, you know. It's common sense, right? You don't need to put these bits in anything. If it's just these little, just getting them started, you can twiddle it through your fingers. Even I can do it, and I'm missing the end of the thumb, so I can do it. It doesn't feel good. Yeah. It was bitten off by a great white shark. Nip. Yep, that's as good as any of them that I've got. It fits. It fits. Camera mounted. Okay, so now it's time to do as we promised and lower the top plate. Not quite sure by exactly how much, but these are the old standoffs and these are the new standoffs. Well, new, they're out of an old quad, but they're about 5 mil or so shorter, the new ones, and they're thicker. Not that that makes much of a difference. I don't really think it's not going to add. It might add some weight. It's not really going to add much durability. Really, I just want to use them because they're lower, and I want to drop that top plate down because you've got a ton of space in here that you don't use. So we can afford to come down 5mm. Start with the easy ones. A lot better. Okay. Takes up a bit of space in there as well. Right, see. Oh, she goes. Right, okay. These two. What we do about this? Okay. They will just fit, but they're not going to go through. Maybe I just melt it. Let's have a look. Be back in a minute. So here we are. I did manage to get all of these TPU parts on. They just needed heating up a bit, stretching, and they went on fine. So it was just a little blast with a hot air gun, and then they stretched over there pretty good. None of them split, they all went over. So yeah, that made that a little bit easier. I've just tidied up these cables a little bit. The excess antenna, the receiver, coax are just coiled up in the back here. They can't move or get hit by anything. And I put a little cable tie just in there. It's not tight, it's free to move. It's not tight on the cables, but it just stops all of these rattling around. And when they rattle around and move a lot, that's when you're going to break your connections. You could put a bit of sticky on there, but that's really not going to go very far at all. I think we're ready for the top plate. Oh, yeah. Oh, so much lower. Oh, she looks meaner. Yeah. Yeah, okay, right, let's get some bolts in that. Don't crank them down hard to begin with. Nice and gently first, till you get them all in. And then tighten it to however you feel is tight enough. And you get a feel for things that are cross-threading, not going in nice. The more you do it, the more of a feel you'll get for it. Just don't force anything in. Again, that's what she said. Oh, she's so much lower. So much, I mean, no, it's only like 5mm, but made a nice bit of difference. Yep. So we are nearly there. Put a cable tie around here to stop this flapping around. Well, let's get this thing finished up then. So before we plug into Betaflight, I'm going to run through the FCC hack on the Vista unit, should you want to do this. If not, skip to the next bit. This is before we've done the hacks. Goggles on, we'll power up the quad. And I'll try to show you what's going on in the goggles. Menu. There we go. Player. So if we go to channels now, you can see we've only got the 3 plus the audience mode. So that shows we're not in the FCC hack mode. So I'll just open up File Explorer. You want to have your Vista powered up via a LiPo and plugged into USB. When you do that, it'll open up as a drive on your computer. It's H here for me. Leave that, that'll be empty. Now, if you don't already have the file saved like I do, you want to go into your notepad, type the number 1, that's it, just the number 1, and then save that file as NACO. Save it as NACO anywhere on your computer, and then when you've got the Vista opened up as a drive, just drop that file into there, and that's it. That'll be the FCC hack all done for you. It is as simple as that. Okay, so now we should see we power up the gogs again, and then plug in the LiPo one more time. Let's have a look inside here. We should see that we have all 8 channels. You'll see all of those channels available to us. That'll be the FCC hack there. All done. Excellent. Let's power that down. Okay, not much more to do now. One last thing, really getting a Betaflight, and we have to enable MSP protocol on the UART that we connected the TX and the RX to, so that the flight controller can speak to the Vista unit. Pretty straightforward. Let's jump into it. Right, so first off, get Betaflight open and connect up your flight controller. There we go. Let's get over here. Good stuff. Okay, so set up ports. Here we are. So we've got serial RX on 3. Yep, we didn't change that. We're still running Crossfire. We don't need Tramp on 5 anymore, and on 4 we want to enable that configuration MSP there. So that's on 4. We soldered the TX and the RX to TX and RX UART 4, TX and RX 4 on the flight controller. So enable that, save and reboot. There we go. She's ready to go. He is done, guys. We're there. We busted up props that were originally on it, but I don't like to tune with mint props really anyway, so and I'm probably going to crash it sooner or later. But my basher is digital. Come out good. Much nicer, being a bit lower profile. It's a bit more compact. It is a basher, so that's why it's got this big chunky mount on there. It's fully protected, and yeah, go bouncing off of trees and concrete and all things like that. Only one thing left to do, and that's charge up a LiPo, get it in the air. Well, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, guys. Please feel free to leave a thumbs up and comment. I'd really appreciate that. And I will catch you in the next one, and I promise it will be shorter and sweeter. Ciao.